we will have a session with Hemali Sodhi, Isha Nagar, Rina Jost, and Ugyen Dorji, in which they will discuss mindfulness in picture books. This discussion will delve into the use of picture books in the promotion of self-awareness and emotional well-being in young children, and will offer insights into the inspiration behind their works. Ugyen Dorji is a seasoned illustrator and visual storyteller with nearly 7 years of experience in the creative industry. Operating under the moniker home-based illustrator, Ugyen predominantly works as a freelance artist. Holding a bachelor's degree in computer application from Pune University, he has collaborated on numerous royal projects, children's books, animations, and films. The founder of a suitable agency, Hemali Sodhi, has over 2 decades of experience in publishing, communications, and brand strategy. Passionate about books and with a proven expertise in communication and brand management, she has conceptualized and worked on a number of pioneering and award-winning marketing campaigns. Her focus has been on building brands, and over the years, she has worked with many renowned writers from around the world. Isha Nagar, a self-taught visual artist, explores various mediums like watercolor, charcoal, and oil, focusing on life and nature in monochrome. After stints with graphic design studios and publishing houses, she founded Tathya in 2014. She has held senior design roles at HarperCollins India and Penguin Random House India's Puffin imprint, specializing in children's literature. She has also illustrated award-winning books. Last, but of course not least, Rina Jost is an illustrator and comic author from Switzerland. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Design with a specialization in illustration fiction from the University of Applied Arts of Lucerne. She works for cultural and corporate clients while also pursuing her own projects. Her graphic novel, WEG, Away, Away, was published in September 2023 by Edition Modern. Please give a warm welcome to Hemali Sodhi, Isha Nagar, Rina Jost, and Ugyen Dorji as they grace our festival stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bhutan Echoes, for this session on a very important, actually a necessary topic. We have illustrators from Bhutan, from Switzerland, and from India, and we're really looking forward to a deep and good cultural exchange. Mindfulness is a word that has been used extensively. I think it has now become a part of everyday life. But what really do we mean by it? Is it self-care? Is it taking care of others? Is it being present? Is it being mindful of our environment? I would like to delve into what mindfulness means to each participant, but before that, if it's okay, I just want to show a short video of something that resonated deeply with me. That is one form of mindfulness, and we'll talk about everyone else's perspective later.
I have a doggy, and this doggy died, and I was very sad, so I don't know how to be not so sad.
This is a very difficult question. Suppose you look into the sky. Look up into the sky and you see a beautiful cloud and you like the cloud so much. And suddenly the cloud is no longer there and you think that the cloud has passed away. Where is my beloved cloud now? So if you have time to reflect, to look, you see that the cloud has not died, has not passed away. The cloud has become the rain. And when you look at the rain, you see your cloud. And when you drink your tea mindfully, you can see the rain in your tea and your cloud in your tea. And you can see, hello, my cloud. I know you have not died. You are still alive in a new form. So Dorji is the same. And if you look very deeply, you can see Dorji in its new form.
I'd like to open this up to all of our participants to ask them what mindfulness means to them. Ugyen, would you like to begin?
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for this very insightful question. Actually, the answer, I think it depends from person to person. So before I jump into the question, let me introduce myself. I'm Ugyen Dorji, also known as home-based illustrator, or rather home-based illustrator, also known as Ugyen Dorji, because that's what most of the people know me as. So yeah, diving into the question, what is mindfulness? I have seen the word mindfulness trend, especially in these modern times. It's used in almost everything. It's used in schools, it's used on social media, it's used everywhere. But what is mindfulness? Or rather, I should say, mind emptiness. Being mindfulness, the mindfulness, it can be applied in anything, in artwork, in singing, in poetry, every form of art, not just storytelling, everywhere. So when I say mindfulness, is basically at that moment, you're not thinking about anything without any judgment, without making any decision, you're just focused on what you're doing. It's like drawing one point at a time. So when you are putting your pencil on the paper and making that one point, so at that time you're focused on making that point. You're not thinking of anything, you're not thinking even about the color of the point. So at that time, you're more focused on what you're doing at the present, not the future, not the past, just at that moment. So to me, that's mindfulness. So when I make stories, I love making stories. I love telling stories through visual arts, through books, through illustrations. So when you love something and when you do what you love, that's where your mindfulness will come in. Mindfulness cannot be bought, okay? You cannot borrow it, or as a matter of fact, you cannot master it. You cannot learn mindfulness. It comes from within, So if you are interested in something, if you are very passionate about something, the mindfulness just comes within. So whenever I make an artwork, because that's the first thing I want to do, make an artwork, tell a story. Of everything, I love telling stories. So when I make an artwork, when I tell a story, I'm at peace. My mind is at peace. And when my mind is at peace, and when I'm doing what I love the most, the happiness comes automatically. So the whole process of mindfulness, the whole process of loving what you are doing is there. So to me, the mindfulness basically means doing what you love, and at the same time, just exploring more. So that's what mindfulness is to me. And the mindfulness state has always helped me, not just as an artist, not just as an illustrator, but as a person. I always relate my process of making an art, telling a story, to my personal life, making choices, even a simple thing, taking care of my son, helping my family, everything is correlated to me with my work. And my work is basically, I can't say like my work is different, my personal life is different. So now when I have built in those mindfulness through my artworks, I'm applying the same thing in my personal life. So thus, I'm a very happy person. Don't go right now, maybe my face is not showing that happiness, but inside I'm a very happy person, I'm a very jolly person. So yeah, so to me, that's what is mindfulness, and that's how it has helped me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. In fact, we are going to come back to practicing mindfulness in your work as well. But I want to take this to Isha. Isha, what does mindfulness mean to you?
Hi, my name is Isha Nagar, and I'm an artist, illustrator, and designer. I've been working in the publishing industry for the past 14 years now. I have designed more than 100 books now and illustrated a few. I feel we're all stories, we're all narratives in a way, shaping ourselves bit by bit, little by little, gradually as we grow. So for me, being mindful is being in the present, not being in the past, not thinking about your past or worrying about your future, but being in the present, being mindful what you're doing right now, rather than worrying about, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow? How is my artwork going to, shape up? So not really focused on the outcome, but instead being in the present and enjoying the journey right now. That is what mindfulness is to me. Mindfulness also comes from within, like Ugyen mentioned, and I completely agree. If you are mindful as a person, it will reflect in your art, it will reflect in whatever you do, wherever you go, whoever you meet, however you behave. Everything boils down to who you are, what your core is, how mindful you are as a person. Yeah, I think that is what mindfulness is to me. And then you extend it to other people, you extend it to the community, you extend it to people around you. It shows in your art, for my case, in my illustrations, how I treat my artworks, what I actually paint or draw, comes from a place of mindfulness, in the sense I'm really thoughtful of what I am making, what I am creating, by being in the present, by not worrying too much about what is it going to be like, how is it, what will the audience think of it, what will my readers think of whatever I have drawn. But instead, I just try and be more focused on what I am doing at that moment. And that is what results in a beautiful artwork. It can result into, if you are a theater person, for instance, it can be a performance. But it will shape up bit by bit if you're mindful in living in the present. That is what mindfulness is all about for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isha. Rina, actually the concept of mindfulness meaning different things to different people came from a conversation you and I had, where you said it might mean different things, both as on a personal level and also in a cultural context. So we'd love to hear from you on what mindfulness means to you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Rina Jost. Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm an illustrator and author living and working in Switzerland. And the first time I came across the word mindfulness was actually in a psychotherapeutical setting and, regarding stress management. So I'm sure other people in Switzerland know it from a more spiritual background, but for me, it was only present in the media when the subject stress management was very present. So for me, but I realized when I've heard you talking that it doesn't mean, it's not that different. So it also means being in the present, not judging, being in the moment. And I can tell you, I find this the worst. I really don't like being in the moment. I'm really bad at doing this. I don't like sitting with my feelings. I always judge and worry. So I'm currently just trying to apply this a bit more to my life and being a bit more mindful.
Let's move on to your works. It would be wonderful if we could actually see how you practice. Practice is a serious word. How you apply mindfulness in the works, and also how that has impacted you personally, if at all. Should we start with you again?
So these are the few of the books that I've worked on. Actually, I worked on these books as an illustrator. So the writing part was done by one of the seasoned author, a local author. So I think she's not here today, but I worked around 7 to 8 books with her. So that's the first book that I worked with her, The Right Thing. And the second book, Just the Way It Is, that's something special. It's kind of similar to the previous book, like, this book, Just the Way It Is, it deals with a death. So a small boy loses his grandpa. So the whole thing is around that one. And the third book is called Hamo's Melody. So it's not out yet. So it will be out soon in the local bookstores. So yeah. So how do I use mindfulness, and what's the process in creating all the stories? I have heard different people use different processes. For instance, some people, if a book is for a kid, the author makes a kid read the manuscript. Like, you go on, you read it, tell me how do you feel. An illustrator, he asks a kid to do the thumbnails, the drafts, illustrations, if it's for children. So there are different processes. So when it comes to my process, when it comes to my artwork, it's coming back to the feeling. If I don't actually feel that, if I'm not there with my artworks, the artwork, no matter how much I try, doesn't come out. So it's always important for me to be there when I'm making something. Be there in the sense, not just physically, but be present when I'm trying to tell a story. Let's say I'm trying to tell a story about a boy sleeping under a tree. So, if I have never gone out into an open park and seen the trees, seen the leaves move in the wind, and seen a boy sleeping under a tree, if I don't feel those things, the art doesn't come out. Be it very simple art or be it very complicated art, it doesn't come out. So now, that's actually, I can say, that's even the challenge that I usually face. Because when we say mindfulness, it comes out very easy. But to practice it is very difficult. It's difficult because not to think beyond, not to think about the past, just to be at the present is very difficult unless you are a statue. It's very difficult for us. So whenever I make an artwork, what I do is, first thing what I do is I sit thinking what I'll make. I stare at the blank paper. So, I don't put out any outlines. My work process might be different, slightly different from other illustrations because I don't do a rough sketch. What I do is I directly lay down colors. So first thing what I do is I put the colors because I always believe I have a strong connection with colors. So I like colors. So what I do is, let's say if the whole scenario is something happiness, a warm feeling. So what I do is I just put down the warm colors. Because right at that time, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just, as I'm going, I'm making the artwork. It's not like I'm planning everything and making the artwork. As I'm putting down the colors, okay. So I'm not even caring about where the colors are going. It's like, I just do it randomly. So then, after it does all the colors and everything, then I try to shape in all those colors. Let's say if I want to make a tree, with those colors, I make a tree. It's almost like making a pot out of a clay. First, you just work around, you model it, then you sculpt it. So it's same thing, my process is same thing. So like, when I'm making all my artwork, so first I do the colors, then I try to shape in the colors. After that, then I try to tell a story through these colors. Like, okay, so I have placed this one here, this one you say, okay, so my character should be here, and this is the whole story. So whole this process, it comes under, to me, especially to me, comes under the mindfulness. So that's how I use mindfulness in my process. Not just going and thinking too much, or not just caring too much. Because, see, if I talk from the artist perspective, I think I can say, like, the greatest challenge is how will the other people perceive your art? How will they say, okay, this art is to them? Whether they'll say it's bad, whether they say it's good. We always seek for those kind of compliments. So we always tend to think. So that's the biggest challenge as an artist we face, especially me. I used to face those, but after following the whole process, now it's all about just creating and telling a story. So that process, I use it for all my storytellings, be it the picture book, or be it the artworks I make, or be it the animations I do. So I'm also an animator. I did some small animations and for some private firms. So everything I do to tell a story has some kind of mindfulness in it. So mindfulness through picture, it always resonates with me. So this same thing also applies in my life. It's difficult, but I'm trying to incorporate those things in my life as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Isha, would you like to take us through some of your works?
So this is one book that I have recently illustrated. It's not out yet, so I don't have a published copy. But this is called Lal Hi Lal, which means so much red. And it's just a very simple story in very few words, which describes this little boy during the spring season, where there are red flowers all across North India. So everybody else is just working or doing their household chores or, going out in the farm. It's a rural story. So the parents go out in the farm, and he is just left alone with his grandmother. And of course, the grandmother is, old, and she's just sleeping or just resting, doing other work. And this little boy, he's too young to go to school like his elder sister, and he just roams around and notices that there's a lot of red, which is why I've used like a monochromatic palette and enhancing just the red bits that he keeps on seeing everywhere. It's a wonderful story, I feel, because nobody picks on these little things. It's not really a grand story per se, but it picks on where it actually follows the boy wherever he goes, and he spots the color red everywhere. Oh, this flower's red. Let me just put it behind my ear. The goat is wearing a red sweater. Everything around him is red, and he notices that the entire story is just about that. Also, it is, the underlying theme is the season of Holi, the festival of colors in India, is around the same time period. And these flowers are used to make those colors organically. So what you do is you take these flowers, you pluck these flowers, you dry them out, and there's an entire process of making color out of these, like a dye out of these. And the process is so seamlessly woven in the story that it's like an underlying theme, but you keep following the boy all around whatever he sees. So I feel it's a perfect example of where mindfulness comes in within the story and how you actually visually depict it. So the color palette, the way the boy is, the character, everything matters at this point. This is another book that I had worked on. It's called The Ghost of Malabar. So this young boy is chased by a ghost who is 500 years old. And he gets very annoyed because the ghost is very chatty. And usually people are afraid of ghosts, but this one does not leave him. And he keeps running around, he keeps finding new ways to get rid of the ghost. He goes to a shopkeeper, and he's like, okay, let me use some, maybe we can have some lizard or something to ward off the ghost. Maybe we can keep this, beneath your pillow or something. So the story builds on, and we also see the cultural aspect in this book. The familial ties, the heritage, because it's based out of Kochi, Kerala, in India. And the entire story is so heartwarming and so wholesome. And the relationship between the ghost and the boy builds on, and eventually the boy, so one day the ghost disappears out of nowhere, and the boy is really worried. So all this while, he was actually trying to get rid of him, and suddenly he is attached to him in a way, and he tries to find him. And the story culminates into him finding the ghost, of course, and also he finds a little something about his own family. So it turns out, spoilers, turns out the ghost was actually part of their family, part of their forefathers, who were, several thousand years ago in the times of Vasco da Gama, and he was a slave under him, and his spirit could not go away. So he comes back, and he gets he was searching for this coin, and this boy helps him find the coin, and he's finally released. So it's a very wholesome story about family, heritage, community, and friendship, a very heartwarming friendship. So, and the way it has been written is keeping in mind all of these things, because it's a very it's rooted deeply in culture, or like a part of, very important part of the fisherman community in Kerala. So one has to be very mindful of what they're writing and how they're depicting it. So I'm glad I worked on this, and these are some of the rough, this is the process where we were working with the author to devise character sketches. How will the main character, Edwin, look like? Eventually, the main one is the one which you see on the bottom. And these are some of the process illustrations for the cover. So talking about process, I would want to tell you a story about where it all started, now that I'm old enough to go back in time and realize. So when I was 4, and of course I don't remember, my parents told me about this story. When I was 4, I drew something which was just a lot of dots on a blank sheet of paper, black dots on like huge chunks of dots on a blank sheet of paper. And I went up to them, showed them my drawing, and they were all very confused, because usually kids draw, flowers or mountains or whatever they see around them, or whatever they're, probably taught in prep. So they asked me, and I very innocently answered that this is spit, thuk. And they all laughed, they burst out laughing, and I was very confused, but that's what I saw. So I feel the starting point of any artwork, illustration, anything, any form of art is observation. So for me, I think when I observe is when I can relate, it evokes some emotions in me, some feeling in me, and that is what I can take back with me on the paper, or whatever medium I'm working on. So observation is key here. And during college, I realized there was something which I wanted to incorporate in my artworks, in whatever I do, was to evoke all the 5 senses. So whatever you see, whatever you smell, whatever you touch or you hear, everything sort of comes together to form that artwork. So I think these are the starting points of where I begin to make my artworks. And the rest, of course, I don't delve into it because I enjoy the process, I enjoy the journey of illustrating. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a very interesting story about spit. I think we should all be very careful around her now. Rina, what about you? Do you want to take us through your works?
Yes, thank you. So I brought you 3 examples. The first one is from my recent graphic novel. Then I've brought you another book by a Swiss illustrator, by Johanna, who is also here. And a third book from a Canadian French illustrator. So I was telling you that the concept of mindfulness, I first encountered it in a psychotherapeutical setting. And so this book is called Weg, this is German. It means away or away. So it has a double meaning in German. And it is about 2 sisters. One of them turns to stone and disappears into a foreign world. And the other sister follows her and tries to save her and bring her back to her family. And this is a metaphor on depression, and it is based on my story and the story of my sister, because my sister suffered from a severe depression. So this book is told from the viewpoint of a relative, because that was the viewpoint that I knew. Of course, it is also fictionalized, and it works with a lot of metaphors. So I brought you one example. In this book, the main character, who is called Malin, she encounters a woman who has hair, living hair. And this woman is currently trying to get up a raw egg and have it stand on its own. So when I roughly translate it, Malin joins the scene in this foreign world, and she asks the woman, "What are you doing?" And the woman says, "Oh, I'm trying to put up a raw egg. It's a mindfulness exercise. Do you want to try it?" And the main character tries it and obviously fails. But later in the book, she meets that woman again. Malin, the main character, realizes that she has to ask for help. She hasn't found her sister, and she's also lost in this world now. So she's stranded and she's asking for help, and the woman takes her back home. And after she's having a good rest and some medicine, the main character tries again, fails again, of course, at this exercise. And then, as you can see, as the seasons go past, she's working on this exercise and she's getting better at it. And only when she finally can put the egg on its own, that it is standing on its own, she actually finds in herself the way to go back to her own world. So, and I think this, of course, one thing is that this is a mindfulness exercise that is quite commonly known in Switzerland. And also, for me, what it means is that the main character has to realize that, she cannot help her sister, and she has to take care of herself first to actually find her way and then be there for others as well. So this is one of the metaphors. This book works with many, many metaphors. The second example I brought is by Johanna Scheible, who you've heard speaking before. It's called Once Upon a Time, There Was and Will Be So Much More. Maybe you have seen it. It is a book. The pages go from big to small and then back to big. And it starts with a page from the past. So in the past there was fire, there was lava, there was dinosaurs. And then towards the middle of the book, it goes into the moment of being right there. So if you're a kid reading this book, you're right in the moment, in the present itself, and then it continues to go to the future. So the pages get smaller and you're in the moment and they get bigger again. And what I find beautiful is that, being in the moment, with this book, I think it acknowledges that there was something before and there comes something after us. And while being present in the moment, this also shapes us. And being aware of this as well, I find it beautifully illustrated in this book. Here you see the pages getting smaller and then bigger again. This is the third example. It's called I'm the Boss. It's by Elise Gravel. He's a Canadian illustrator. And I've read it to my nephew, who is 2.5 years old now. And actually there's a tiny blue character and a bigger red character, so we guess it's a parent, but it can be any other person as well, like a grown-up. So the blue character says, your job today is to give me anything I want. Okay, let's start. And then the blue character keeps asking for ridiculous things. So at first it says, I want a garbage truck and I want to drive it myself. A big one, right now. And, of course, the red character says, no, dear, I can't give you a garbage truck to drive by yourself. This is impossible. Then the blue one asks for a castle made of chocolate, a big one, right now. And the red one declines and says, well, no, dear, I cannot give you that. So it continues, so all the pages in the book are the blue character making weird requests and the red one denying them. And in the end, the blue character gets frustrated and starts to cry and says, oh, you're so mean, you're never giving to me what I want. And the red one says, oh, I can see that you are sad. Do you need a hug? Yes, please, a big one, right now. And then in the last page, you can see them hug. And I find it beautiful that, the blue character learns to live with this frustration, and then the hug symbolizes the moment of acceptance, kind of. And of course, this is very close to the experience of children, because they have so much frustration in their everyday life. I mean, adults denying them stuff all the time. So I think this is a very nice example of mindfulness in picture books.
These are beautiful examples. Thank you for sharing these. All of you have answered this to some degree earlier, but we're talking about mindfulness in picture books, which means that we are addressing a much younger audience, which requires a certain kind of skill and a certain kind of sensitivity and a certain kind of language. So do you want to talk a bit more about how you would explain the concept of mindfulness to a very young audience? Maybe what are the techniques that you employ? What are the challenges that you face when you do so? And should we start this way now? Rina, do you want to go first?
Okay. Well, maybe I can, answer the question a tiny bit differently, because I've brought some other examples. And so as I told you, I'm not that familiar with the concept of mindfulness, so I do not use the concept to teach it to children. But what I do is I try to be mindful in my own work of how I portray things. So I have brought some books that I've made. This one is is an educational. So the first one is an educational book, and so it's teaching children about friendship, about food, about everyday life. And my job as an illustrator was to be mindful of different lived experiences. So you know, that there is different cultures, different foods, also in Switzerland, different everyday lives that kids have, and being very mindful of these experience, and also including, you know, handicapped children, children with different backgrounds, with different family models, so not everybody has a mom and a dad. Some kids only have one parent or none, or two moms, or so it can be very different, their lived experience, and I try to be mindful of that. The second example that I'm giving around actually includes also, it was a project called Double Life, and it was a huge exhibition. It was 100 square meters, and there was the same people all over it. So you could find them in their different lives. So, you know, one might be a bus driver, but at home, you know, had problems with his baby because it's crying the whole night, but also could be in another situation. And so it also talks about, you know, difficult themes like drug abuse, like mental health. So I think it's really important for us as illustrators to be aware that our lived experience is not the same as everyone else's, and that we make the effort and research a bit, and also, you know, teach children through the image about different experiences, and so this will help shape their mind to be mindful for this as well, and to learn to respect others.
So for me, again, like you said, I try and practice mindfulness when I'm creating artworks, creating books for kids. Not sure about how I would, you know, use all those techniques to teach kids about mindfulness per se. I feel picture books are like mirrors for kids. They're very reflective. They're very young kids who are more drawn to visuals than the words. So for some kids, parents would actually read them out loud. So it's mostly the visuals that they're looking at, and they're hearing what their parents are saying, which gives them the entire experience. So what I try to do is to be more mindful myself, practice those techniques myself, in order to create something which resonates with them, which is more relatable to kids per se. I've been working on some projects which are based on inclusivity, identity, breaking gender stereotypes. So because these are very relevant topics in our times right now, and we need to be more mindful of what is the audience that we are addressing our book to. Our illustrations are based on what kind of community, the regional aspects, the cultural aspects, taking care of all these little things before it actually manifests into something big, like a book. So I think for me, practicing mindfulness is still ongoing, and I wish to do more of it, to actually, for it to reflect in my books further.
Yeah, I think we both have some similar views on those things. So I always find it like it's more difficult to make the kids understand the story than, you know, narrating to adults. Because when you are trying to tell a story, especially to children, especially the visuals, without the words, the visual itself needs to tell a story. So I've always found that it's a little difficult and it's something little, you know, the approach needs to be different when you're addressing the children and when you're addressing the adults. So the process is a little different. So when I try to tell a story, especially to children through my artworks, like you can see in my examples, so all my stories, I think it's something to do with, you know, towards the end, it tells a story like, if you do right thing, you'll always be blessed. You know, if you do the right thing, it kind of gives the whole theme like always do the right thing. So for example, my first book, The Right Thing, the title itself gives away the whole theme, is the right thing. So in that story, a small girl, she finds a purse on the footpath. So she picks up the purse. She goes around asking, like, whose purse is this? So towards the end, she finds the owner and she gives, and that owner gives a chocolate to her. So in this sense of themes, like all my illustrations, all my stories has some kind of sense of just educating the whole children, the concept of doing the right thing. And if you look into my second book, Just the Way It Is, so it's also a form of mindfulness in itself. It's teaching a small boy passing away of his grandfather. So it's a story about how the boy learns, everything is not permanent, and how you have to live with the fact that at some point in life, everybody will pass away. So even when I'm creating the book, I have to be very mindful not to give the wrong impression, to give a right sense of story, to give a right sense of color, and the whole theme itself is maintained in such a way, like, it's a coping book. Like you're just trying to tell someone at the end of the day, even if you love someone so much, it doesn't matter, because some part of life, all of us has lost someone. So that's just the way it is. So that's how it is. And my third book, Hamo's Melody, also jumps down in a similar theme. Like it's about a little girl who's trying to learn the music. So she doesn't know how to play the music, and she struggles. So the whole journey is about she struggling how to play, and towards the end, she plays a melody that fills her heart, and she's so happy. So all my artworks, all my stories has some kind of similar theme, whereby I'm trying to tell a story to the children, like, always be happy. I just try to maintain the whole happy theme, like not just go, beyond something, like, something very simple. Just keep it very simple so that everybody will understand. As a family, they can enjoy the book, and as children, they can enjoy the whole visuals. So, of course, it's very difficult to keep it very simple, because we always know making simple is making it more difficult. So it's always there, but I'm not saying I've learned and mastered the technique. I'm also in the same state, like, learning the mindfulness. First, I need to practice this myself. Then I can incorporate fully in my artworks. So yeah, I think it's a long learning process.
Yeah, it is work in progress all the time, isn't it? Thank you so much. We'd like to open this out to the audience if there are any questions.
Hello, everyone. I'm very honored to be here. Moving on to my question, when you talk about books which showcases the message of mindfulness, I found something which is common in most of it, such as in Rina's book, where the backdrop is somewhat in the natural environment, such as the forest. In Sir Ugyen's Hamo's Melody, the backdrop is like a valley in the mountains, right, sir? And then in Ma'am Isha's Lali Hilal book, the backdrop is in like the springs environment. So many of the authors use natural environment as a backdrop to their mindfulness themes. So how do you think the natural environment really enhances the message of mindfulness in your stories?
Thank you so much for the question. It's a very relevant question in today's times as well, where we are focused on environment, and we also have a green-lit, the whole range of green-lit books coming up. I feel personally that nature provides us with that serenity, and the entire peaceful environment as a backdrop for most of our illustrations, as you've noticed. I think this is very relevant in today's times, where we use nature to be part of our lives, incorporated in our lives, in our books, in every day, wherever we go, because we have a lot of concrete anyway. We live in houses built of, stone and brick and everything. And especially for me, I live in a city and I hardly see greenery around. It really works for me when I go down to the mountains or go on for a vacation in the greens, in the mountains or the greenery. It really rejuvenates me. It inspires my artworks to go in that direction because I feel one with nature. So I think that is why it's a recurring theme.
Maybe I can show you these two books that I've brought. It's called Tuya's Trip and Mungsul's Move. These are two books written by another Swiss woman who's called Anita Farni Minear. She's having a lot of ties with Mongolia. She's a lot older than me, and she's been traveling to Mongolia very often. She has political ties there, and she helps some NGOs. And these two books, especially the first one, talks about the environment protection in Mongolia, which is also a very important subject there. So there is a region called Strictly Protected Area, Gobibi. And so as an illustrator, I always like when I get the chance to work on projects like these who, teach people to be mindful about their environments and about, appreciating the animals and the wildlife that they have and protecting them. And the interesting thing about these books is they are not for sale. They were printed in Mongolia and they were distributed to the countryside for free, and every school kid got a free sample. So this is very nice. And since we are, part of publishing, I think when we take a step back, we also have to be mindful about the environment while producing books, because producing books is, not great for the environment. So in Switzerland, a lot of publishers now are shifting a bit towards a more green approach. So they buy, paper that is not too bad for the environment, not used a lot of bleach and stuff. So, and my publisher for this graphic novel, for example, they only print a small print run, because big publishing houses around the world sometimes just print a lot of copies of one book, and if it doesn't sell, they throw them in the trash. And that's part of their commercial concept. It's just, one book out of 20, 30, I don't know, will do great and be a bestseller, and the other one gets trashed. So to be more mindful of this is also a responsibility that we have to take on.
Great, so I'm going to give this back to Rina again.
It's just someone that, while you were talking, it sparked something in me, because when I'm reading a book with my nephew, who is 2.5 years old, and we've talked about being mindful in the moment, so when he brings me a book and he wants me to read it to him, and sometimes I'm not in the mood, right? Sometimes I'm like, oh, okay. But then when I sit down with him, and read the book, it always is a wonderful experience. I'm sure you can relate. Because when you're sitting with a kid and reading a book, you're really in the moment, you're present. Of course, you're also telling a story, but it's also, often my nephew comes to me and sits on my lap, which is also, usually he doesn't do that. He prefers running around than giving hugs. So this is also for me, it's a very nice opportunity to be present in the moment. So,
thank you so much. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. I learned a great deal. Thank you. Thank you to Bhutan Echoes. We're really, really delighted to be here, to the wonderful team of volunteers and everyone else. And thank you to our audience.
Thank you very much to all of you for giving us so much insight into your works and into your thoughts on mindfulness. We could truly see not only the love that you have for your art, but also the thought that goes into it with the help of this discussion. So thank you so, so, so much. One more round of applause for the panel. Now, that brings us to the end of our panel discussion here at the Royal Textile Academy. We have been privy to priceless conversations between experienced and passionate individuals. It has ignited a love for children's storybooks in me, and I hope that rings true for all of you here today. I hope you enjoyed the sessions to the fullest, and it was my pleasure to be your host for today. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.